decision of correcting an awful lot of the misinformation that is out there. John suggested that wouldn't it be good if during the negotiations, which yes happened behind closed doors, the way a lot of negotiations happen, wouldn't it have been good if the majority leaders of the House and the Senate had been given access to the documents so that they could kibitz along the way? The fact was, and here's the reality, every single member of Congress, of the House and of the Senate, at any point during the negotiations could review the negotiations and the text in full. And I did this many times because again, this is a tough one. So not just the leadership of the House and the Senate, but every single member of Congress had the opportunity, and in fact took advantage of that opportunity, to review the text while it was under negotiation. The idea that the investor dispute resolution mechanism would cause us to change our domestic laws is, very simply speaking, not true. The only cause for action in front of an ISDR tribunal is if you feel that as an American investor going into Asia or as an Asian investor coming into the United States, you have received discriminatory treatment. That is to say that if, to pick a local company, Pitney Bowes were to make a big investment in Vietnam, and Vietnam discriminated against that foreign company in favor of a local Vietnamese company, then they could bring suit. But you cannot bring suit because, just to go through John's list, you don't like wage laws. You cannot bring suit because you don't like the environmental laws or the financial regulation. I hear this idea that TPP will require us to, modify or eliminate Dodd-Frank, a bill I had a big hand in helping to write. That is simply false. Now, there's one other factor here that I would ask this very sophisticated, international affairs-oriented crowd to consider. When you're considering a particular proposal or a piece of legislation, and John knows this because he serves part of the state up in Hartford, you're not deciding between the deal in front of you and the angels and perfection. You are deciding between the deal in front of you and the alternative, which is, in this case, to do nothing. Now, I ask you to consider the national security argument here, because, and again, I'm not going to get put in the position of defending something I haven't decided to support, but the president is not wrong when he says that if we walk away from this, 40% of global economic activity, guess who is there to step in? You don't have to guess too hard to know that if we withdraw from this, China will step in. We've seen it already with China creating their own version of the World Bank with Asian countries. And I ask you to consider this, whether you think the environmental standards, which are terribly important, the labor treatment standards, which are very important, the preservation of intellectual property standards, which are very, do you think that if we walk away from this deal and allow the Chinese to strike their own deal with Malaysia, Vietnam, Brunei, and the other countries, do you think those standards are going to be better or worse under the Chinese paradigm than they are under the current proposal in the Trans-Pacific Partnership?
Anything more on this? Or?
Yeah, unfortunately, obviously, at first you were in favor of it, then you weren't, and that's fine. You have the right to change your mind, and I appreciate the fact that you backed away from initially saying, I think I'm going to support this because the president asked me to do it. Now you're saying, well, no, I got to think.
I never said that.
And if you didn't, then I apologize, because that's what I read. What I do know is that the Sierra Club and the AFL-CIO just disagree with everything you just said. They disagree with everything you just said. And you can go on their websites and check it out. Because guess what? That's not accurate what he just said. Under the ISDS system, you can collaterally attack environmental laws. You can collaterally attack wage and hour laws. And even if for some reason you could say, okay, Congress isn't going to change the law, well, guess what you can do? You get lost future profits under the ISDS. Who pays for that? You do. You do. So again, if an investor from Malaysia or Vietnam decides that our wage and hour laws or our environmental laws are causing them some kind of trade imbalance or some kind of trade harm, you get to pay them for their lost profits. Congratulations, well done. That's how we're bringing it up. I mean, Jim started, the environmental standards and the labor standards, we could bring them up in Vietnam. Well, how about the environmental standards and the labor standards here in the United States? Why let them get collaterally attacked? And the concept that if we don't just take this deal, that China's going to rush in and suck away all of our trade, that's just nonsense. Come on, we're the biggest economy on the planet Earth, and that's not going anywhere anytime soon. So we still have the power, the horsepower, the means, and the methods to make this deal better, and we should, because free trade is the right way to go. We are in a world economy. We should promote free trade, but to say we got to take it away, the president says it's good, so I'm going to just do it. That's nonsense. And to say China's going to steal it from us, that's nonsense too. We're already competing with China, by the way. So just whether you sign a treaty or not doesn't mean that's going to go away. Final thing. The folks in Congress had the ability to review, what was the word you used? Kibitz, had the ability to kibitz about the deal, but you didn't have any input. You were not permitted to have input, and that's your job as a congressman.
All right, gentlemen, are you ready to move on to the next
Well,
question?
I just want to make a quick point, and again, that is simply inaccurate. I work very closely with Trade Representative Froman, providing my input and others' input along the way in this process. John, you started by saying, wouldn't it be great if the Senate and House majority leaders had access? Everyone had access, and yes, I provided input along the way. John is right. The Sierra Club, which has always endorsed me and has endorsed me again, opposes this deal. The World Wildlife Fund, the Nature Conservancy, the World Animal Protection Fund, the Rainforest Alliance, the Joint Ocean Committee have all endorsed it. And I say that not to win this argument, I just say this because it's important as we consider this deal, as I'm considering it. I never said I was for it, but as I'm considering it, it's important that we realize that this is a very complicated thing with lots of upside and lots of downside. And anybody who tells you that it is very clearly a bad idea or very clearly a good idea isn't thinking hard enough about the TPP.
All right, next question.